welcome back. Today we're going to continue our series on building our hive. Today we're going to build the screen bottom board. You can buy the bottom boards. This one here, just the way I build my bottom board, you pretty much need a table saw. So if you don't have a table saw, you might be better off to purchase your bottom board. But if you do, I'm going to show you how to do it. So let's get started. So we're going to continue to make our bottom board, the outside of our bottom board, out of pine. You'll need a 1x4 by about 8 or 1x4 by 6 actually today, out of pine. And then we've got some pieces we've got to put on the inside. You're not going to see that as much, and it's not exposed to the weather as much. So I don't have a whole bunch of extra pine. Rather than run to the store, I'm just going to use this piece of spruce that I have here. Anyways, so as we know from last time, our boxes are 16 inches, 16 and a half inches wide and 20 inches long. So we're going to start by ripping this 2 3/4 inches wide and cutting 2 pieces 20 inches long. We're going to move this out of the way. We have a bit of ripping we've got to do. So on my bottom boards, I have it set up on the end so that we can slide in our board, our sticky board, so we can do a couple things. One, we can close this off to the outside, so if it's cold outside, we don't want the additional airflow up through there. You do if you run the hive heaters like I do, you want that heat to be able to go up there. But if I'm checking for mites, I want to be able to run my sticky board in here, so I've got to put a groove on these boards. This should be what we're going to have. So all we're going to do is we're going to cut a groove in there. The width of our phylon, I buy phylon by the sheet. So you can get it by a 4-foot by 8-foot sheet at any of the hardware stores. I'm just going to cut a slot in there so that it'll accept the phylon. And I'm going to do that all the way down. So I'm just going to make a mark here, 1/4 inch. That's basically how deep I want the saw blade to go. And then I'll set my saw depth. Lock that in. Here. So we are 1/2 inch up and 1/4 inch. There we go. Now, we're going to want to do the same thing up top here, but now it's going to be 3/4 inch thick to accept the board so that we can put our screen on. Once again, we're not going to adjust our saw, but this now is going to come up to 1 1/4 inches and then to 2 inches. The same thing. We're just going to run the saw one width at a time until we clear that out. And if we double check that, that should be 3/4 inch wide. I'm just under a hair, so I'm going to take a tiny bit more. We can clean the rest of that out with a chisel now. Now what we want to do is we're going to have 3/4 inch on the one end. it's important at this point in time that we match them up and we mark what the tops are. So the top, we want our sticky board down on the bottom. And what we're going to do is on the front, we're going to set it up for our landing board. And on the back, it's going to come right to the end. So we are done with the back. We just have to make our groove here for our piece for our landing board to go on. And that's going to come in 3/4 of an inch. So we can miter that out. There we go. That'll now accept our front and for our landing board. Let's go clean this out with a chisel. So we take our 3/4 inch chisel, should fit down in there nice, since we're gonna get that 3/4 inch board in there. The chisel should fit. And I think it's gonna be just about perfect. I don't have a dado blade. It's one of those things that I got on my wish list. Well, just haven't got around to convincing myself to buy one quite yet. Make sure we put the guards back on these. I have these sharpened up razor sharp. All right, so we've got a marked top and our front. Now what we have to do is we've got to cut a piece from between there. So as we know from last time, I've left a little bit more on this one, so we're always going to want to double check. So we know from our box, we're 16.5 inches wide. So if we were to put these pieces together, and if you weren't very good at math, you could go to 16.5 to the edge, which is going to tell you to cut our board 15 5/8. But we'll go cut a board now 15 5/8. So we're cutting this board right here. So it's going to be 15 5/8, we said, by 2 inches. So this is going to fit right down in the bottom, and that's looking just about perfect. So that's going to fit in between both on the front there. Just like that. Now we got to cut some pieces to go in here to hold our screen board. Let me just grab the prototype. So this is where we're currently sitting. We do have our piece that we'll put in here after. The next one we're going to cut is we're going to cut the one that's going to go across the back here. So if you can see, it's made of 2 pieces. So there's actually one that goes all the way across that touches in both sides, which we're going to get to. But we want it so that our outside dimensions are 16.5. So it's going to be the exact same size. So if we were to take this and put it in here, and we were to measure that up, we are 16.5. So, and that is by 2.5. So let's go cut one by 2.5. Don't throw those lid pieces away. They work really good to keep your smoker going. All right, with those pieces cut, now what we have to do is we have to make the front piece and the 2 edge pieces in order to attach our 1/8 inch screen. So these are gonna, or the front one is gonna be the exact same size, so that'll be 15 1/8. And these are all, I do believe, by 1 3/4. So we can rip some down to that size. All right, it should fit right in here. Like a glove. Now, if we're level at the back, or flush at the back, and we're flush at the front, we can measure these, and they're going to be 15 1/8. We need 2 of those. And they're going to fit right in the sides here. And this should be good and snug if we did this right. On both sides. We're starting to come together. All right, we now have our landing board that we're going to have to build to go out front. Remember those pieces we cut out of the legs? Let's grab them. So these are the longer two, and it's going to fit right on the front. So we're going to cut that out to make it go. And on this edge, we're actually going to cut this on about a 15-degree angle so that it slopes down and away. So in the event if it rains, the water will not run in the hive, it'll run off and away. All right, and I ripped those edges off, so it is going to fit right on the front like that. All right, I think we're pretty much ready to give this a quick sand, get all the edges off, and I think we're ready to put it together. And I'm going to use my brad nailer again. You know I kind of like that. Hopefully you didn't get the parts all mixed up. Let's put it together. So we're going to start at the front. We have our landing board, which we cut on an angle. So that's going to be one of the last pieces we put on. Let's just kind of mock this up, just to make sure we don't have anything out of place. So we know our phylon or our sticky board is going to be on the bottom. So those will be our sides. We have the one for the back, which went all the way across the back. And then we had the 2 pieces that went on the inside. So there we kind of have our mock-up. We know exactly how it's going to go. So what we'll do is we'll set these off. And we're going to start with the front. So the very front piece, what we want to do is we want to take the one that is going to go inside the channel, and we're just going to fasten it to the front one. We're going to glue it all on there. This glue bottle just doesn't seem to want to empty. It's all dried up from last time. There we go. Get that off there. All right. And these pieces are just going to go right together. And we will flatten, as always. You want it flush on the top where the bees are going to come in. You want it flush on the end so that it lines up as well. We just want to make sure we've got it put together right. I'm just going to move this one clamp just to double check. We can fix it right now while the glue's wet. We won't be able to fix it afterwards. And that's going to fit together nicely. All right. Now we're just going to put a few in. All right, we'll give that just a minute or so to set up. In the meantime, we'll set that off the back. I don't want to put it there. Let's set that up there. We'll start with our board at the back. So it's going to go right in the slot that we have grooved out there on both sides. That's just going to fit right in. We have our top mark on both sides, and it's going to go right flush at the back. So we can go ahead and glue that in, clamp that in, and get it ready to go. Do the same for the other side, and I'm going to break out the new glue bottle. It's just going to slide right in the other side, flush at the back, and I'm going to get a big clamp. Okay, we got that pulled in good and tight on all four sides. This will be dried up, all pretty much set already, so it can go into the front. And it's going to go right in here, and this is going to start working to keep everything nice and square. We're going to have to make sure it's square too before we're too far. My clamps won't work so well on this one. Okay, but before we put that in there, we want to put our front board on. So it's going to be slightly larger, but we're just going to even it out on both sides. And that way, when it goes in here, it's actually going to cover onto the end boards a little bit. We can go ahead and glue that up. And this one's a little bit harder to clamp because of the angle that it's on. So what I've done in the past is I've just nailed it in place. I'm going to set this off to the side here. Because the way it sits, you actually have to nail it up from underneath here where somebody really wants to get a hold of me. Just like that. Ooh, looks like I had one nail, two nails come through, but when we hit that with a sander, you won't see that. All right, now we can glue this, and it'll go right into place. And slide it right in like that. I'll grab another clamp. And make sure things are square. That's looking pretty good. All right, the last thing we have to do is put our side pieces in. Got both sides on there now. Both sides are clamped in. I'm just going to clamp it lengthwise here too, I think. It's good. The sides are good. All right. And of course we can nail these pieces in down along the sides. All right, so the only thing we really have left to do now is we're going to make our front entrance reducer, but we're going to let this dry and sit all square up, and then we'll go ahead and we'll get that done. All right, well, it's been a couple hours, so this should be dry by now. We'll take these clamps off, see how it's all sitting. And it's looking pretty good. All right, what do we have left? We got to build our entry reducer. I usually build a couple of the reducers. I think I showed you the kind of the standard one that you can get, and depending as to how you set it in there, it changes the entry. There's just really no way you can block it off completely in there. So what I normally do is, I have lots of lumber, I have the saw, so I'll just make one, a wide reducer, I'll make a small reducer, and then I'll make one that I can block it right off if need be. So kind of have 3 of them. I just leave them right up in the top of the hive underneath the top cover, and then they're always there with the hives. So let's make one of those. We got our piece to do at the back, we got our screen to put on, and then our sticky board. So we're just about got this licked up. So the front should be 3/4 by 3/4, and it is going to be 15 5/8 long, and we need the piece for the back, and that's going to be 15. So we can go ahead and cut our pieces. All right, should have one shorter one. It's going to fit right in here at the back. It's just a little bit wide. I wonder if these ones are the same way. Nope, those ones fit almost perfect. So, just to be on the safe side, I'm going to rip this down right now. There we go, custom made. So that could go in the back, and then our front pieces, these are our entrance reducers. We're just going to notch them now. So one's going to be just like you see, so we can block it off. And make sure they all 3 fit in there just right. Perfect. And then this one here we can go ahead and glue in place. I guess we got to turn the compressor on. I'll go notch these while the compressor's going. And basically all we're going to do is we can pick our size we want. So normally it's about 3/8 of an inch high. So these grooves are normally about 3/8 of an inch deep. And then we can make them as long as you want. So if the hive is pretty weak, this one's usually only about 3/4 of an inch wide. But this one here you can see is quite a bit wider, and that one's 4 inches. So I think we'll do the same thing. We'll make one with a 3/4 inch gap, and we'll make one with a 4-inch gap. And I'm just going to cut that all on the table saw again. We'll mark them out so it goes in the center, out from both sides on each one. There you are. Compressor's all pressurized up. That's the other thing I like about the brad nailer. You don't have to be cheap on nails. All right, and now you can see how our hive entrance reducers fit right in there. So we got one to block it right off. We got a entry reducer, so when your hive is a little bit weak, just starting out. And of course, as it gets stronger, you can open it up. And then of course you can take them right out. And that's part of the reason I build my hives this way. I don't know if you can see the notch. Sometimes, you know, if it's just the hive reducer that is in there, you can kind of push it in right past and then you're fishing for it. This way, they'll come up to the block and it can never go any further. So I kind of like that design and that idea. So you never have to worry about pushing it in too far. All right, now we need our piece of sticky board. So I use Phylon. I buy it in the 4-foot by 8-foot sheet. So I'll get this cleaned up and then we'll bring the Phylon over and we'll get that cut. All right, Coroplast is another word that they use for this sometimes. It's actually got a little bit, I don't know if you kind of see it there, it's got a cell in it, but it's fairly sturdy, it's fairly cheap. I got this at a place up here called Home Hardware. But like I say, most of your hardware stores will have it. What we need to do is, we just need to cut a piece to fit down inside here. So we're going to measure from inside the slot to inside the slot. So in this case, 15 5/8. I'm going to take a 1/16 of an inch off of that, just to make it a little bit easier. Now, I did find out the hard way that it's a little easier to cut this so you go with the grain when you're pushing it in. However, when you do that, it becomes really flimsy. So you almost want to cut it across the grain to provide some support as it's in there. So sometimes I guess things aren't the easiest. So what did I say? 15 5/8. So we're going to make it 15 9/16. Lines right up. All right, if our measurements are correct, this should slide right in here. Just like that. Now what we need to do is we need to cut it to length. Oh. Still got a bit of a sore back. And that is going to be 19 1/4. Now, I'm going to try something different this time around. The last ones that I did, I had a hard time grabbing it and pulling it out. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do this time. There's a couple different ways I can do this. And I'm going to use the Phylon. So I'm going to add an inch onto here. So that'd be 20 1/4. And that's where I'm going to cut this time. So last time I cut them so that they went in and they went right in flush. This time, I'm leaving some for me to grab. Now what I'm going to do is, you don't want that big gap left there, so we're going to cut a small piece, top and bottom, and then it's going to get nailed with the Phylon in between. So on the top, we need a piece 1/2 inch. And the bottom is 1/2 inch by 15. Let's go cut a couple pieces. All right, they fit in there. I actually cut them a little shorter than 15 inches. I actually cut them 14 7/8. I just wanted them to be a little bit of play in there. And I got my line here on the one side, and do I want that sticking out all the way along? We might as well make it look nice, right? That's going to give us a nice little handle. And I'm just going to cheat here for starters. That way I know my bottom piece isn't going to run away on me. And you'll notice I'm not gluing this one because I really don't think the glue is going to make that much of a difference. I will. So you can see how that made a nice handle, and it filled it all in the back. Looks pretty good. All right, the only thing we really have left to do is we're going to put the 1/8 by 1/8 mesh on there. What I am going to do first though is I'm going to sand this all up, make it look really good, get it ready for paint or stain, and then we'll come back and we'll put the screen on. Let me get on that. We got that all cleaned up. Now we want to put a piece of screen in here. So the screen's going to go on top. We don't want it to go all the way to the front, so the bees can land on the board, they can walk in. We don't need it to go right to the front. So we're going to make this, we're not going to put it all the way to the back either. So we're going to make it, say, 17 inches by 14 inches. All right, make sure you use an old pair of snips. Cutting wire or anything like that with a good pair of tin snips, you're going to wreck the tin snips. That's going to fit down in there nicely. Now, when you buy a big roll, one side of it is almost finished. So that's the side I'm going to put to the front. You don't have to worry about it coming apart or anything. So it's just going to sit right down inside like that. We're going to staple it on. And I show you the staple side of this. So 3/8 is lots. You're going to want to make sure you give yourself a good staple gun. But I like these Arrow T50. And the reason I like them is I'll bring these up here. You can see that the teeth are pointed. So what that does is when I'm stapling it in, if I'm right on top of the wire, it'll slide to one side or the other so that it always goes into the wire. All we're going to want to do is square it up. I usually like to try and start on the front. And we're just going to staple it in. Now, don't be afraid to use lots of staples. That's got it all in there. Now we're just going to go around and we're going to hammer it all down. I'm just going to get something to tap it on because I don't want to put a bunch of the strain on here. So I'm just going to get a heavier board to put down in underneath. And then we're just going to tap all the staples in. And there, we have our bottom board. Well, actually, let's just set this up really quickly. We built our stand. We've got our bottom board. We built our brood box. And now we got our honey super. We got our inner board and our top cover to put on and build. That's pretty much it. It's coming right along. Once again, If you want to follow along, hit the subscribe button, give me the thumbs up, and until next time, everybody enjoy, keep warm.